I think it's perfectly valid I mean, these guys are cynically demanding that Kamala Harris do interviews, but like, yeah, no, she should. It's a solid line of attack. It's a solid line of attack against Kamala Harris, and I think it's valid for Kamala Harris to do interviews.
That's the highlight.
Good morning to all four of you. Former President Trump and Elon Musk delving into a roughly 2-hour-long conversation. More than 1 million people joining to listen in to the two men who spent a lot of time discussing inflation. Watch.
The thing that they really is making them angry is what Kamala and Biden have allowed to happen to the economy. It's a disaster. The inflation, it doesn't matter what you make. The inflation has eaten you alive.
Trump slamming Harris for not doing an extended interview for more than...
It is pretty funny, though, like, that he's just lisping. I feel like people not on like liberal media, mainstream media or whatever, but people on like social media will most likely hyper focus on that a little bit. I don't know. I thought it was funny.
In 3 weeks.
You think Biden could do this interview? Do you think
it's not the compression? I thought it was the compression. I think it's because he was like talking down. No, I thought it was the compression too, chat. I thought it was audio issues. It's not. You want to know what? You want to know how I know it wasn't? Because there's video of him talking. Someone filmed him talking without. Here, look.
Both. Biden actually did something that was impossible.
Biden actually did something that's impossible. Bro, come on. That ain't no compression, dog.
Biden actually did something that was impossible.
Biden. It's his dentures, bro. It's because I don't think he doesn't normally speak like this. You know what I mean? He normally doesn't like speak with his head tilted down so much. So you don't actually ever hear him sound like that. Biden actually did something impossible.
Biden actually did something that was impossible. Both sides hate him. You know, both sides. Yeah. That was a hard thing to do. Unification.
Oh, it's so good. Biden actually did something impossible.
Biden actually did something that was impossible.
Kept the Invisalign in, dude. It's
both
awesome.
Sides.
Is that funny? Yes. Yes. Chatters. Yes. Okay. To the Trump supporters. To the Trump supporters who are like, how dare you make fun of him? It's not funny. Nah, it is, dude. It's funny, dude. Sorry. I love how quickly Republicans will become like bloggers. Like they turn into like article heads. They turn into article writers. It's like why it's quite problematic to make fun of Trump's list. Why it's quite problematic and ableist to make fun of Trump's list. A think piece. What the fuck? This is funny. Don't make fun of him. We need to talk. No, we don't. Is JD all over again complaining about being bullied? Exactly. It's like, wow, these Democrats are bullying us. It's really fun because they keep calling us weird. They keep calling us weird. And it's like, yeah, bro, that should be that is the lightest way in which the Democrats have gently criticized you guys. Okay, calm the down. You call them like pedophile interdimensional vampires and shut the fuck up. Anyway, let's see what my favorite lib had to say about all of this.
That Kamala could do this interview, they would take a pass on you.
No, they could not.
It's pretty sad when you think that somebody that does this for a living can't answer a question or is afraid to do an interview.
Musk inviting Harris to speak with him on X as well, but she is unlikely to do so considering she has not done an interview in 23 days since launching her campaign. But does it really matter? Harris did just get a glowing Time magazine cover without even being interviewed. It's a different tune from the press with previous headlines like this from the Washington Post. Remember, this was just months ago when the press was saying this, quote, "For the country's sake, Vice President Harris should step aside." Or New York Magazine making, quote, "the case for Biden to drop Kamala Harris." And the New York Times saying, quote, "Kamala Harris is trying to define her vice presidency. Even her allies are tired of waiting." Guys, much different than that Time magazine cover and article.
How do you get a...
Should lose donors in the media? I'm not so certain on that either. She might lose some donors, but she stands to benefit a lot. This was pretty clearly allies of Biden. Lamau.
Profile piece without a profile.
Right, she wouldn't give into an interview. She would not do an interview.
Unreal.
Good question. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. You know, let's not be surprised.
She didn't even pose for the picture.
No.
They didn't even talk to her. They talked to Pete Buttigieg. They talked to somebody from CNN and a gun control advocate instead of talking to her. But don't be surprised that they gave her.
I'm always reminded of this 2003 Olmer quote, more and more Palestinians are uninterested in a negotiated two-state solution because they want to change the essence of the conflict from an Algerian paradigm to a South African one, from a struggle against occupation in their parlance to a struggle for a one-man, one vote. That is, of course, a much cleaner struggle, a much more popular struggle, and ultimately a much more powerful one. For us, it would mean the end of the Jewish state. That's where I'm at. That's where I've been at. That's what I've been talking about, because that's what it is. You cannot Algeria your way out of the situation. It is a South African apartheid situation. You live in Bantustans already. This is why many more people over the course of the past 2 decades have moved beyond a two-state call to a one-state solution, because there is one state right now. There's functionally one state. Is the Israeli state. It just happens to be an apartheid state. And all of a sudden, it's a much cleaner conversation, too. It's like, what do you mean your demographic concerns, you freak? Oh, I'm sorry. You have to have a majority Jewish ethno state, so you just cannot let people live in their homes? Like, that's insane.
The cover of Time magazine. Remember,
Yeah, we're not surprised.
Remember, before Obama, he was given a Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
Before he did anything for peace.
For not being George Bush.
Yeah. And
But
so
at least,
she's running because she's not Joe Biden.
They keep making this comparison, but at least Obama, agree with him or not, at least he had that it factor. He had rallies where people loved him. He started as a state senator, worked his way up. There was a message behind him. You used to see everyone with the T-shirts and everything. And I don't see this big movement of Kamala, yet she gets to be on the cover with no interviews. At least Obama did interviews.
He did.
Right. So she's got 80-plus days. She says, I'm going to talk to my people about doing an interview in August. Can you imagine that?
J.D. Vance did how many interviews on Sunday?
Yeah,
Donald
he did
Trump's
3.
One day.
Donald Trump's been interviewed yesterday with Elon Musk.
Yeah, but for her,
Okay, come on. That's not an interview. That was a glaze, dude. That was a glaze sesh. Get the fuck out of here.
it's still working. I mean, she's not declining in the polls. She's gone up a little bit. She's kind of plateaued. And this is even an off week, because it's not until next week with the DNC they're going to roll out. Just imagine how Hollywood is going to present through videos and stuff like that, and speakers and everything else, what is going on with Kamala Harris. It's going to be don't be surprised, usually you get a bump after your convention.
But yeah, no doubt about it. It was tough for Trump to get a bump because he had nobody to go against. Yeah. A bump against who? He left. He bumped him right out. By the way, this is my analogy, and I think it might be brilliant.
Okay
it's like trying to win American Idol without singing, just by going on stage and looking. And they're like, oh, that's the winner. Wait a second. They haven't started singing yet. And so we have no idea what she stands for, what she's going to do. But she looks the part. She looks great walking on stage. There, look at my guy. My coach is so happy. He's got like this way of clapping, which is so interesting.
Let's expand on that. Your candidate that's on American Idol that hasn't sung.
I think it's perfectly valid these guys are cynically demanding that Kamala Harris do interviews, but yeah, no, she should. It's a solid line of attack. It's a solid line of attack against Kamala Harris, and I think it's valid for Kamala Harris to do interviews. Like, it's a fair argument that they're making.
Yet did have some songs. They were not hits.
I gotta pee.
Right.
They were so bad.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what her record is.
Right. And then when she does sing, it sounds exactly like Trump.
Right.
Exactly. All of a sudden, she's a great singer.
So my analogy is somewhat brilliant because you're building on it.
Well, here's the thing.
Right.
She has presented an idea, a vision. The big question is that enough for a lot of people? Will a majority
What's
of
her
people...
vision?
Well, her vision is a brighter tomorrow, Brian.
Oh, a brighter tomorrow. So Annie's vision.
She hasn't gone into any specifics yet, because then
She's
politically that's complicated.
Right.
And
so the sun will come out tomorrow.
That would
Tomorrow.
be Annie.
It's always a day away.
Yeah.
It is indeed.
Right.
ARF.
Right.
She keeps changing her positions because she knows if she sticks to the way she's voted her entire political career, then they will lose.
That's why she didn't get the nomination the first time. And they grabbed Joe Biden from oblivion and said, you can at least pretend to be a moderate. You don't have to campaign. What do you think? He said, yes, I'll do this for 4 years. Priest Kamala Harris. And for 3.5 years, people have been trying to get rid of her. And in fact, the LA Times headline was the incredible disappearing vice president. And now, without even any warning, they told us she's half Margaret Thatcher, half Indira Gandhi. Well, so congratulations.
The offer still stands on this program. If she ever wants it, we just want to ask questions. We don't want to fact check. We want to push back, really. Just ask, just give us something. Let us know where you stand.
But we do have some segments booked, like the back to school segment.
That's correct.
We can't put her anywhere.
That's right.
That's right. If she does come on, we just need some warning.
I will tell you this. Our bookers call them every day.
Every day.
Yeah. Every day.
No response. All right.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the...
It's funny. They're just so mad they don't have content. And I get it. I get it. I want it too. When Biden dropped that, Caitlin Collins' first call was to Donald Trump. Yeah, I don't care about this.
Now we begin with former President...
Video is 5 times louder than your mic. Sorry. McEnany, this is foreign influence on our election. I'm willing to bet. How much you want to bet she's not going to talk about? How much you want to bet she's not going to talk about Israel? Okay. Do you think the lack of Kamala interviews is hurting or helping her campaign? Right now, it's not hurting. It's probably helping because there is no contest. If she's not doing interviews and she's still carrying the momentum with like every new drop and drip feeding new policies and letting Waltz do this like solo campaigning now too. That's all good, okay? Because the interview is going to lead to the media asking some questions like, how do you respond to the accusations that you were the border czar and that you are responsible for the crisis at the southern border? Okay, that's number one. Number two, how do you what do you say to people that want to believe that you got a reset on Joe Biden's foreign policy, including but not limited to Israel? These are questions that I would want to ask her as well. Like if I had an opportunity to talk to Kamala Harris, questions that I would ask would be, one, why are you still running on the right-wing immigration numbers instead of trying to actively counter message against the Republican hysteria, or instead of actively trying to get people to acknowledge that the Republican solution to immigration is Hitlerian? Another question that I would ask would be, like I said, what are you going to do that's different than Joe Biden in terms of your commitment? You call for a ceasefire ahead of time. You leaked to the media that you actually wanted a permanent ceasefire, but the Biden campaign changed your message to a temporary ceasefire. What do you have to say what do you have to say to those who are looking to see if you have a differentiation from the Biden administration? That's why I'm sharply dressed right now, because, it's like mentally I'm interviewing Kamala Harris, the next president of the United States of America, potentially. This is why you are not invited to the DNC. You're wrong. I am going to the DNC. I do have my credentials. I did get my Secret Service clearance. So you're wrong. I am going to the DNC. I have also, Democratic congresspersons have already reached out to try to get interviews. One I've said no to, one I've said yes to. I will not be revealing names yet. You got TikToker credentials, get your money up, not your funny up, uncle. Yeah, whatever. Are you allowed to stream from the DNC? Yes. Let's see what Fox is talking about with foreign influence on our election.
Outlining his view for the country, all while we are still waiting to hear from Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump sat down with tech mogul Elon Musk for a wide-ranging interview. They talked about the economy, education, artificial intelligence, and the failure to close our broken southern border. Watch.
There's never been a country in history that has had a catastrophe like this. We have a defective government. You have millions of people coming in a month, and then she gets up and she tries to pretend like she's going to do something. She had 3.5 years. And by the way, they have another 5 months that they can do something, but they won't do anything. It's all talk.
Millions of people coming in a month. Millions. 12 million new migrants in the country over the last year.
Trump also talked about the impact of inflation on everyday Americans.
If you're just a middle-income person, you can't afford. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, people were saving a lot of money. Today, they're using all their money and borrowing money just to live. It's a horrible thing that's happening.
And Trump is out with this, a 20-point list of, quote, core promises to the American people if he retakes the White House. And the Trump campaign launched this new ad.
On November 5th, 2024, justice will be done. We will take back our country and we will make America great again.
Paul Morrow, there was a lot of content covered by the two of those gentlemen and a lot of content and policy put forth by the Trump campaign afterward.
So that's actually the salient point, right, is the fact that there was a lot of content, because that's what we're not getting from the other side, right? So, look, I got to quote the Babylon Bee. Woman who says, vote me into office so I can fix things, is currently in office. So at what point are you going to start? We're ready. We'll hold your coat. Go ahead. You're the border czar right now. As we speak, you could do everything you're promising. So go ahead. Realistically, she's promised two things, right? One of them she stole from Trump, which is the tip thing. The other thing about the border that I think we should recognize is reporting out from the Washington Examiner that shows that she and her husband donated thousands of dollars last year to a not only defund group, a sanctuary city group that wants to turn Washington, D.C., our capital, into a permanent sanctuary city status. Consider that now. The border czar wants our capital to be permanently a sanctuary city. That tells you a lot.
It tells you a lot, Harris, especially in contrast to the Trump campaign that has outlined and keeps hammering what happens with sanctuary city policies. You know, bringing up everyday Americans that are impacted by these policies negatively is the point. They covered a lot of stuff, and we've yet to hear from the existing vice president in all of her years of service.
Look.
Holding these hats, what are her accomplishments?
She's messing with some pretty difficult ground now. I mean, I interviewed a border sheriff last hour, Mark Lamb, and he knew a gentleman who was in the...
I'm not gonna lie, the border stuff does not even have the juice. Like, it literally, you'll see, I think they have to run on it because it's the one issue that Donald Trump, like, obviously has been able to captivate the broader American population on and is, like, significantly better, seemingly better by American standards on, okay? But, like, I don't think there's enough juice on it. It's like the crime. Part of it is because border crossings have dropped off of a cliff with Biden's incredibly restrictive policies. That's number one, okay? And number two, inevitably, I hope the Democrats counter message against that a little bit. Like, Jesus Christ. The Democrats need to launch specific attacks against what mass deportation looks like and call into question how Republicans are going to achieve the mass deportation of millions. Okay. Yeah. Sanctuary cities are so badly impacted by immigration that they still don't vote Republican. Yeah. It's odd. It's odd. Polling this week has shown that the messaging by Kamala and the Trump border bill and border crossings are at their lowest level. Altogether have cratered the Trump good on border from plus 23 to 6 in 2 weeks. Yeah, I hate that. I still hate that. I hate that because Kamala is like running on a right-wing bill. That is going to be incredibly consequential in the long term. It's already incredibly consequential. Look no further than the right-wing race riots that occurred all around the UK, where the Labour government also leaned into restrictive immigration policies and blamed migrants as well. Maybe not to the same degree as like Rishi Sunak or the Tories, but they still did that. And ultimately, what you are left with is an incredibly reactionary populace. It's very frustrating. The only thing I've seen, new poll, 1 in 3 Britons support the pogroms. Polling has been released on Brits' views on violence towards refugees and immigrants. How does Britain view violence towards refugees and immigrants? 39% agree, 61% disagree. When it comes to the refugee problem, violence is sometimes the only means that citizens have to get the attention of British politicians. The pogroms. 39% of British people believe the pogroms are good. Do you know how devastating that is? 39%. Attacks against refugee homes are sometimes necessary to make it clear to politicians that we have a refugee problem. 34%. 34%, lad. How is your club doing, mate? What do you mean? Hostility against refugees is sometimes justified. Violence. 32% agree. Xenophobic acts of violence are defensible if they result in fewer refugees being settled in your own town. 36%. Now that's proper toy. Right. It's craziness. So basically every third person you meet in the UK is racist. Like, not even just like regular races, okay? Not even regular races. We're talking straight up, like right wing, willing to do violent things, okay? Anyway, Let's look at the Harry Enton polling data shows three caution points for the Democrats. I've been interested in seeing this.
Viral moments to big crowds at rallies. The surge in enthusiasm for Kamala Harris's presidential campaign has translated to higher polling numbers. But our senior data reporter, Harry Enton, is here to remind us it is still way too soon to count the other candidate, Donald Trump, out. We're just under 3 months to the election. How much does enthusiasm predict what's going to happen at the polls?
Yeah, right, exactly. I mean, the thing that we put out those poll numbers yesterday, you know, New York Times, Siena College, we covered them. I showed you the Ipsos polling, all of which that showed Kamala Harris with clear momentum, enthusiasm potentially on her side. But I just want to take a step back and sort of point out we've kind of been here before. So August 13th, how far were the polls off in Michigan, Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin? And this is in 2016 and 2020. Trump was estimated both times around and by significant margins. Take a look here. In 2016, the average poll in those states that I mentioned, those Great Lake battleground states, Trump was underestimated by 9 points on average at this point in 2016. How about 2020? It wasn't a one-off. Look at this. He was underestimated by 5 points on average. And, of course, Kamala Harris's advantage in those New York Times, Siena College polls were 4 points in each of these key battleground states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. The bottom line is this. If you have any idea, if you're a Kamala Harris fan and you want to rip open the champagne bottle, pop that cork, do not do it. Donald Trump is very much in this race. If we have a polling shift like we've seen in prior years from now until the final result, Donald Trump would actually win. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I am saying that he is very much in this ballgame based upon where he is right now and compare that to where he was in prior years.
We certainly heard the Harris campaign saying we have to keep fighting.
Absolutely.
This is definitely not over. All right. Let's talk about enthusiasm and how that translates actually. We are quite a ways out, again, 3 months about.
Yeah, you know, yesterday I was mentioning, you know, the enthusiasm for the Democratic ticket was up. Yep. But that enthusiasm is not the same thing as going out to actually vote. And there's a different question, which essentially says, how certain are you actually going to go out and vote? And this is the top range. Almost certain to vote. Again, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. This is among registered voters. Look at this. Look at Kamala Harris now compared to where Joe Biden was back in May. In fact, 62% of Joe Biden voters said they were almost certain to turn out and vote. Now,
it's gone down.
It's actually gone down a little bit. I would call this in the same general area at 61%. But it's basically unchanged. And look at Donald Trump. He was at 58% in May. He's actually gone up a little bit now. He's at 60% now. Again, basically no real change. So the bottom line here is, yes, there may be more enthusiasm for Kamala Harris, but the fact is we're not seeing that necessarily translate in the almost certain vote. And one little other...
The 1% Biden or busters, dude. Let's go.
Note, Sarah, I will note this. Donald Trump is more popular today than he was on August 13th in either 2020 or 2016. So the bottom line is, yes, Kamala Harris is doing better in the polls, but there's a long way to go. The polls can shift. The almost certain to vote hasn't actually shifted, and Donald Trump is more popular than he was at either 2016 or 2020 at this point.
Those are interesting data points, Harry Enton. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Kate?
Joining us now, CNN political commentators Michael Singleton and Paul Begala. Paul, take where that conversation with the bright spots for Donald Trump, if you will, that Harry Enton was pointing to right there, and add this into it. As Axios is talking today about the way they put it is Trump's panicked pivot. A flurry of movements aimed at Harris's momentum. Trump yesterday, Monday, posted on X for the first time in nearly a year, sat for a rambling 2-hour conversation with Elon Musk, unveiled a barrage of online ads, scheduled trips to 2 swing states, beefed up his team by bringing a former aide.
Weeby in the chat asked a wonderful question. Where are all the liberals who said that it's impossible for Trump to win yesterday?
Bringing on a former aide who led a pro-Trump super PAC. You see that and you think what?
Well, I think necessary but not sufficient. Honestly, I just set my Democratic hat off. If I work for Trump, I'd put him out there. Why is he sitting in Mar-a-Lago talking to this billionaire on his Twitter machine, right? He ought to be out there. Why isn't he in Michigan? Why isn't he in Wisconsin? Why isn't he in Pennsylvania? Why isn't he in Arizona? I honestly don't know. People who listened to that discussion, as it were, on X, I did not, said that he was slurring his words. He seemed discombobulated as I am right now. I think that there's something going on with Trump, and it may just be that he's thrown off.
Bro, he does a rally every other day. No, he hasn't. He used to. Since the Butler attempt, he hasn't really gone to any swing states. It's not even a joke. Like, he just straight up has slowed down his campaigning. And I think it's been like weeks. It's been weeks since he's like actually got, I don't think he's like scared PTSD wise. I think he just doesn't like the crowd size comparisons. I'm not kidding.
Off by Kamala Harris. But it does point the way to the Democrats' new way of taking on Mr. Trump, which I think is very smart. It used to be Democrats were like, oh, scream and yell, oh, hair on fire, he's a threat, he's a strong man, he's a dictator. And my hair was on fire so much I don't have any left. Now they're switching to ridicule, right? Much more effective.
Time to go.
Even the hogs are pissed. Oh my God, Kamala HQ posting quarter pounder. That's crazy.
Yes. Like, it's time to go, dude. Like, I know your rallies are fun and stuff like that, but you got to go, baby. Like, Kamala's out there. He's got to go. JD Vance is not Donald Trump. I don't think sending JD Vance to Wisconsin matters as much. He's got to go.
We need 2016 Trump. You remember when he was doing like 4 events a day?
That's
he was doing like 4 MAGA rallies per day.
Yeah, he was doing, he was doing one at like 2 in the afternoon. Then he was going to another state and he's doing he has to do that. Like, he has to now it's time. He played enough golf. It's go time.
He did that in 2020 as well. People forget. When it came down to the wire, he was doing like 2 to 3 a day. It was madness. And it was so funny because like they didn't have a lot of money left by the end of it. And I think they would just like, they would leave old people stranded and you know what I mean? They wouldn't like they wouldn't get buses. Like, he would just literally do nonstop rallies.
Like, by the end of September, he better be on the road every day. He's got to get out there more now. It's time to go.
Yes.
Like, it's time to go, dude. Like, I know your rallies are fun and stuff like that, but you got to go.
Anyway.
You know, Alinsky's rules for radical, number 5. Ridicule is our most potent weapon because the target does not know how to respond. Trump doesn't know what to do. And the thing on X was just a target-rich environment. It was just a complete joke. I mean, it was pathetic. And I don't understand why they have a guy who's really good at rallies and they're not putting him out there in rallies in swing states. I don't get it.
Your self-awareness is one of your more endearing qualities, Paul Begala. Michael, a pro-Trump super PAC just announced in the past day that it's spending $100 million on ads between now and Labor Day to run ads in 7 swing states.
That's, by the way, ahead of the normal spending. They're dumping $100 million because they recognize that Kamala Harris is cooking right now, and they want to cut away at that momentum by really beefing up the border czar because they feel like that's the strongest aspect of their campaigning. Like, the strongest point that they have in their minds is that Kamala Harris is the border czar. Kamala Harris didn't like do anything about immigration. So they're just going to keep pumping that narrative over and over again, which I suspect is going to lead the Kamala Harris campaign to lean further into the reactionary angle, which I think is a misstep and I think will annoy younger Hispanic voters in general in states that are also important to win. But what the f I know? Do political ads work on moderates? I mean, if you flood the market endlessly, even if you're Donald Trump, even if you're a guy like Donald Trump, people are going to respond to it. At least that's what they're banking on. That's why they're trying to flood the market.
That blunt the momentum that is evidenced in the polling now for Kamala Harris?
I mean, it's certainly going to help, Kate. The campaign is also spending $73 million. So combined, you're getting close to $200 million over the next 3 weeks in an effort to define Vice President Harris and an effort to define her running mate. Voting will start in September. You just saw with Harry Enton how close the poll numbers are, despite the fact that Vice President Harris does have a national lead. If you take into account the numbers from 2016.
By the way, this is not related to the thing that we're watching, but here's how I know we have a lot of like new normies in the chat today, because the amount of people that are asking what I'm eating has skyrocketed. I eat at the same time every day, and I eat basically the same meal every day. It's just chicken, okay? It's just chicken. That's it.
And 2020, where Donald Trump appeared to be further behind than he actually was. If you take into the 9 points from 2016 to 5 points from 2020, then you actually see a race that's either dead even or at least with Trump a point ahead. And so I do think there's still an opportunity to potentially shift some of those numbers before people in those early battleground states begin to vote early come mid-September.
One of the states to watch was and is Arizona. And Paul, we've now learned that abortion will be on the ballot in Arizona this November. The Secretary of State certifying that an abortion access measure has more than enough of the signatures required. The proposed amendment would allow abortions until a fetus could survive outside the womb, typically around 24 weeks. It would restrict the state from adopting or enforcing any law that would prohibit abortion access. I am wondering now what this could mean for voter turnout for the presidential race and also a closely watched Senate race there, Paul.
Right. The Dobbs decision, 2022, was the most important single-day political moment I have seen since 9/11. It changed everything in politics, and it will for years to come. This has not aged well, right? The gay rights decision that Obergefell, that aged very well. The day it came out, a lot of people didn't like it. Over time, everybody accepted it. People are not accepting Dobbs, especially the women of America. And by the way, there are many guys who like women and who also want to restore Roe versus Wade. This is a huge issue for Kamala Harris and the Democrats. And so, yes, it's going to move voters in Arizona. It's going to move voters because listen to what Kamala Harris is saying. She's got a new ad out, too. And she says, I want the same abortion rights in every state. I want this. She wants to go back to Roe versus Wade, where every state had to have the same essential abortion laws. That is a really powerful driver because the problem for abortion for Democrats is Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania all have Democratic governors who have pledged to veto any restrictions on abortions. So when Kamala Harris says Trump and Project 2025 wants to eliminate abortion rights in all states, I want to enshrine them in all states. Now you're giving voters, not only in Arizona where it's on the ballot, but in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania where it's not, you're giving them a reason to go and vote pro-choice.
So, Michael, real quick, does Arizona make you nervous now when you know this is going to be on the ballot?
I mean, Kate, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think there's a Republican strategist in this country who's worth their salt who would not tell you, holy smoke, this is not what you want on the ballot before a hotly contested election. We know after 2 years of electoral data that this issue mobilizes the heck out of Democrats. It mobilizes suburban women voters. It's why you've seen the former president attempting to moderate his stance and, well, states should vote on the issue. And by that, I think he means ballot initiatives allowing voters in those states to vote on the issue. But this is just not good for Republicans because it not only gins up turnout, but it gins up turnout for Democrats. That is the opposite effect you